Ever since gaining the Framemeister, I've been playing the Mega Drive on my TV a lot more, and it really gives it a super clear image with its integer scaling. Adding scan lines and other retro looks, nostalgia started to hit me pretty hard, and I began to reminisce my childhood. It was then when I remembered the good old days of the Master System. I never owned one, but an old friend of mine did, as well as my cousin. I recall hours and hours of playing Sonic and other titles on their consoles. In fact, they're the reason why I got into the Blue Blur. Feeling a bit emotional, I took a quick gander on eBay to see how much the vintage machine was going for these days. £30 plus isn't bad, or £50 for a modded version so it'd run in 60Hz, seeming as I'm in the PAL region. I took the plunge and bought it, as well as other miscellaneous games separately for a decent price. I obviously had to get as many Sonic games as I could for this console, as long as it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. Yeah, like I have that in my back pocket. Within a few days of ordering, the games arrived first, with a week later, the Master System, which came with Sonic 2. Looks like I'll be doing a giveaway in the near future. But I digress, I plugged it all in and after a lot of technical snaff, I was recapturing my youth. And shock horror, I started with Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. These were the two I had the most recollection with. But was it at all as I remembered? Was it worth the money I paid for? Well, seeming as I have the tools to record real hardware, despite the jail bars, that's just part of the Master System charm irritatingly delivers, you're just going to have to ignore that. Let's take a look together, starting with Sonic 1 for the Master System. A mini review. Seeming as this is just a small appraisal, I'm not going to analyse the progressive lead up on how the game came to be, but I do want to get one little thing off my chest. Sonic 1 for the Master System did not see a release before its superior on the Mega Drive or Genesis. The 16-bit variant was first into the wild on the 23rd of June 1991, with our 8-bit friend not appearing until the 25th of October in the same year. And before you jump out and ask, the Game Gear handheld equivalent was even later in mid-December. But we don't care about that with its screen crunch and ugliest sprites. Gracious, they're awful. However, we can all agree that this is Sonic's first main starting point for this generation of consoles, and they did a great job. They, as in the developers of this game, Ancient Corp. You see, back in those days, the Sonic team had their heads screwed on and knew they couldn't split their team to work on separate projects. So they got another company to work on a Master System port. And there was me saying I wasn't going to examine the backstory. Let's crack on and actually talk about this magnificent game. Yeah, it pales in comparison to the Mega Drive counterpart, but the speed and excitement still exists within. I mean, the very first act of the very first level, you can break the boundary of the camera like nobody's business. Quite often, I went a tad too fast, even making the game skip a cutscene. And whoa, I'm diving into this retrospective too fast. Let's take a chill pill and start from the beginning. The controls are pretty simple, have a wild guess what the D-pad does, and both 1 and 2 make Sonic jump. While running, tapping down on the control pad will force Sonic into a roll, or while static, you can see what's below you, or even up above by holding the up button instead. Thus, in essence, the exact same controls as the 16-bit edition. Not too complicated then, with the dynamics being relatively easy to master. It's just an inconsistent frame rate you have to fight against way too much, and that's where you may start to struggle because this game is full to the brim of sluggishness. And avoiding obstacles and traps become harder than it actually should be. Even without the game dragon, a new mechanic I cannot get to grips with is your incompetence to collect fallen rings, or shall I say, ring. I know with Sonic games it truly doesn't matter how many rings you currently hold, but every little helps when it came to recollecting your scattered rings, but in this lesser version, you're out of luck and you have to find fresh rings elsewhere. At least you get to keep your shield between zones, so that's pretty awesome. Sonic looks spectacular in this game. He has the right amount of colour to him, he's at the perfect size, and the Hedgehog always stood out no matter what scenario he was in. No criticism from me here. As long as you're using an RGB SCART and not the horrible standard RF cable, the colours to this game really do pop out, especially in Jungle Zone. A lot of these stages look exquisite with a fair amount of detail. I'm quite impressed with the standard they came up with for an 8-bit classic. There wasn't really any presentation that disappointed me, bar the title screen when you boot up the game. I mean, really? They couldn't even add a background of some sort? Talk about an awkward first impression. Having said that, the emblem here is pretty decent looking with a great beholden palette. I assume with all the colours that were involved here, a background image wasn't possible, so... Okay, I retract my complaint. There are 6 zones to this game, each containing 3 acts, the latter being the boss encounter. Starting each act, you're presented a map to demonstrate how far you proceeded, with the name of the level in a tidy little box. It's a neat addition, although I wish there was more use for it. Like, imagine pausing the game to redisplay the map to see how far you advanced within the act, just like you could with Alex the Kid. I know, each act being super short, the map idea is a bit pointless, but it would have been cool nonetheless. I can live with the game freezing on the spot, except for certain objects for some bizarre reason. A lot of the assets are borrowed from its bigger brother, like the majority of the badniks, the level name and art design. Yet there is some originality to this platformer. We have a good amount of exclusive levels, some interesting yet annoying level gimmicks with the auto-scroller and bridge zone, God forbid we go fast in the Sonic game, and the screen boundary lock and jungle zone 2, which would be the death of me. Another splendid trick reserved for the Master System port is the bonus prizes dished out by the ending signpost. I still haven't for the love of Jiminy Cricket figured out how this works, but all I know is that a certain ring requirement is needed for a particular gift, and that 50 rings or more are needed to be sent to the bonus stage, which is just Sonic bouncing around obtaining an extra life or continue, and also regretting every waking moment of entering the bleeding place. But do you know what the real kick in the teeth is? If you manage to obtain 100 rings or more within the zone, you're granted an extra life right there and there, which is nice and all, but you do not get sent to the bonus stage when passing the goalpost. You technically need between 50 and 99 rings for that honour. Theoretically, if you collected 108 rings, the game will say you only have 8. The bonus stages isn't really essential to anything anyway, therefore it's not a massive deal. So what, no Chaos Emeralds then? Oh, there are Chaos Emeralds. Just like the original Sonic one, 6 of them exist. However, instead of the means of special stages, the stones are sprinkled around the island with 1 emerald per zone. You do not need any ring requirements or keys to pick them up, just simply run into the colourful gem and be on your merry way. Some emeralds require a bit of exploring, whereas some of them are just in plain sight and it's impossible to miss. Oh look, I'll be taking that. Initially, finding all of these can be perplexing, but when you've done it once, the game becomes really easy to 100% next time round and forever over. And here's some good news, if you collected a Chaos Emerald and you die before finishing the act, you don't lose the emerald. No automatic refunding here, once it's yours, it's yours. Still, there's no incentive to get all the emeralds really. An extra few seconds are taxed onto the ending cutscene where the emeralds remove the darkness casted by the evil genius, but that's about it. Let's talk about that mustached villain for a moment, shall we? Wow, that was easy. Surely I'm going to breeze through this nuts. Oh, come on! What? Really? Yes! The boss's bar the first conflict can be quite challenging. The main reason being is the absence of rings. Make a small mistake, and that will cost you a life. It may take a few lives to figure out the pattern of these clashes, but after that, the bosses become really easy to defeat, except for the jungle boss because of the exploding rolling bombs that seem to be totally random when they explode! Blimey, Jungle Zone is probably the hardest level of the lot with its boss and its huge gapped platforms and its rising screen of death! It's just lucky that the stage looks sophisticated and plays cheerful music to keep up my spirits. The majority of the melodies are enjoyable to my ears, and I find myself actually going to have a quick listen to the soundtrack on YouTube if I'm ever in the mood. Sonic 1 for the Master System contains some interesting compositions, with Skybase being my favourite. To me, it sounds like it could have been an invincibility theme for Eggman, especially as the zone itself contains no rings. I have to say, for Sonic's first entrance to the third generation of video game consoles, they did a remarkable job and had all of their priorities in the right places. With the visuals, the tunes and the controls all being near spot on, I can forgive the little annoyances such as slowdowns and how the scattered ring scheme was implemented. This game could have included more in terms of level design and features. I mean, there's not even a single loop in this game. But maybe that's what Sonic 2 was left to pick up? We'll find out in my next mini-review to arrive soon. But I would most certainly recommend giving Sonic 1 for the Master System a go, especially for any newcomers to the franchise of the Sega mascot. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see the Sonic 2 mini-review sooner rather than later, make sure to hit that like button. And to subscribe to be notified of future content. And as always, thanks to my sponsors. They get early access to all my videos as well as other priorities and goodies. More information on becoming a sponsor yourself can be found in the description. Until next time, you guys have a wonderful day. Toodaloo!